Hi, I'm Khushi and this is Flipping Founders.
Due to the polarizing opinions about blockchain, NFTs, and cryptocurrency, it can be really overwhelming for a beginner to even try to decide where to invest in. This is why today I have with me Naijide Anwaer. Welcome to Flipping Founders.
Thank you so much.
He is the co-founder of Blockaday, and we would be talking about blockchain technology today.
Excited.
So, would you like to tell us a little about yourself and your background?
Sure. First of all, it's great to be here. So a bit about myself. My name is Naijide, and I'm a third-year university student. I'm studying psychology with potential minor in business in the future. I've been really interested in crypto since I think it's been a year and a half now, and just sort of delving into it, the rabbit hole. Started this company called Blockaday with a couple of friends, and eventually we kind of we went through a couple of like problems here and there, and sort of grew together, learned a lot of things, and now we pivoted our business model to podcasts, and we've been it's been amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What do you think is the one thing people misunderstand about blockchain the most?
I think to look at this, I can see it from two perspectives. So one is that a lot of people think this is a completely new thing. I think the correct way to understand is it's sort of utilizing the existing technologies and kind of combining them together and figuring out a new way of doing things completely. So to be a bit more specific, the three technology is sort of public key cryptography, and then distributed system and consensus model. So these are sort of the core technologies that goes into blockchain. And I think the second thing that people misunderstand is it's only something that applies to the financial market, that people make a lot of money. It's just an investing thing, potentially a lot of scams here and there. But it's actually just a technology that enables people to do things differently. And this can apply to many other industries, such as supply chain, medicine, healthcare, and like many other things, gaming. So I think these are the two big misunderstandings in the blockchain technology space.
Your co-founders and how did it all started? What's your founding story?
Just attended this hackathon,
Mm-hmm.
and I met someone who was super interested in blockchain, and I was just thinking, hey, I'm interested in blockchain, but I barely find people to talk about blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't a lot of people kind of forming a community and talking about it. So I talked to my co-founder and said, why don't we start a community? And basically, we just started Blockaday as a community, and some people came in, and essentially we had I think we had four co-founders. Essentially, we just started as a community, thinking about purely just educating people about blockchain, talking about it, and that's how it started.
That's wonderful. And are they, your age, like your friends, or are they all like different ages and different stages of their life?
Definitely different stage of different stages, different age. I'm the youngest, so obviously, everyone else was two of them were graduated, and one of them was in fourth year. So we're all different stages in life.
Yeah, so regardless of like what career stage or age everyone is, it was just like this love for blockchain and like seeing the potential of blockchain that like brought you all together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. For my next question, how did you start the business and what was your original plan? And I think that was a Web3 Edu Tech company. So what does the day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so I can delve a little bit deeper into the journey of Blockaday. So obviously, like I said, we started as a community. It was just pure passion and love to educate people about blockchain and to talk about it, to kind of figure this industry out together. But the more we built this community, the more people came into the community, started talking about it, and more experts we talked to, and the companies as well. We realized that there is a great business opportunity there, and that a lot of these Web3 startups, they have really great product ideas, but to build a startup is very difficult, right? You have to pour a lot of resources into actually building it. But in this industry, it's so new that people don't understand the value of blockchain. So you have this difficulty to actually educate your users about potential users about why this product is going to help you. But a lot of these startups don't have the resources and time to educate their users. So we thought, hey, why don't we come in as your partner educational arm and do the education for you so you can focus on your product and we will take care of the education for you. So that to us sounded like a really great business plan. And we start validating with other businesses and we found that it's a great opportunity. We receive a lot of interest. So we had this business plan set out. We started to pitch to other companies. We got clients as well, uh, and and we. I think this is where I can sort of talk about this sort of perceived growth stage of Blockaday. You know, we were growing quite fast, and I think one of the few things that a lot of student founders or young founders, the mistake that they might make is when you're at a growth stage, you always, or when you're founding a company, you always want to do a lot of things. You have so many ideas, right? And most of them are great ideas, but you have to understand that you have limited resources, right? And it really comes down to resource allocation. With the amount of resources, what can you achieve? What should you prioritize? And I think that's one of the things that I don't think we did really well. We had great ideas, and essentially we wanted to pursue all of them. But with the limited resources that we had, when you sort of, when you have this much water and you pour in like 5 different cups, you're going to have very little water in all the different cups, right? So you want to be able to do each of them really well. So I think that's one of the mistakes, in my opinion, that we made. So it didn't go as much as I thought it would go.
The profit model look like for your company?
Yeah, so to put it quite simply, we did this. Essentially, we could think about it as like a creative agency. So, they want these sort of education material made, whether that's online, whether that's in person networking, in person panel discussion, or just like a video or a podcast. These are all sort of different services that we provide. And for each service that we provide, we charge a certain amount, right? So essentially, yeah.
But yeah, and are there other companies doing something similar to yours?
Mm, I think there are, but what's most sort of common is individuals who are doing these stuff. So there are people who are sort of Web3 influencers, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram. They help these companies to post their stuff. But I think this is where we were the differentiating factor for us is that a lot of these influencers, they focus on the hype, right? They focus on what's next coin, what's this. But we were really, really focused on the technology. So we're trying to break down the technology so that people understand why it's valuable and how it's going to change people's lives. So I think that was the main differentiating factor. That's one. And maybe I can just quickly touch on something.
Yeah.
One of the things we also wanted to build was a educational platform that utilizes blockchain. So think about like Udemy or Coursera, but it's built on the blockchain. So essentially, you would earn the certificate as NFTs, and these would basically be with you forever, right? So you'd basically have a wallet that has all of your educational certificates, everything that you've done, and this will represent your educational history. And wherever you go, you can prove it, right? So there's no doubt about sort of whether or not you faked it, whether or not you did this, and you had to actually complete some of the things in order to earn some of these NFTs. So that was the original idea. We want to build up products. There are a lot of similar products out there. I can mention a few. Maybe if you're interested, you can check it out. Rabbit Hole. There's Anza Academy. There are many Web3 Academy. There are many different websites that do a bit similar things. They utilize the technology to sort of help people kind of educate people about Web3, but I think it can go beyond that, right? So it's not just Web3; it could be anything.
Yeah, so yes, I have a few questions about digital assets.
Sure.
And then I think the first one would be, is the volatility and unregulated nature of cryptocurrency in particular the reason for, such huge gains and losses? when it comes to like market capitalization?
It's a very good question, right? So I think it's definitely a contributing factor. There are many aspects that goes into, let's just say, like, why does cryptocurrency go all the way up and all the way down? Like, why is there so much gains and losses in this?
Yeah.
So I think to understand this, it's more about, like, it's more about human behavior, right? It's like, why is there so much demand in this stuff all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and then, like, why does it drop so much, right? So of sort of emerging technologies and how they get adopted, we can look back in the early 2000s, the dot-com crash, right? So
Yeah.
dot-com bubble, essentially there's this new emerging technology saying that, oh, anyone can use the internet, and then all these random internet companies came up and said,
Yeah.
we're going to do this and we're going to do that. There's this huge bubble, and then all of a sudden it bursted because there's no, like, let's say 90% of these companies are not producing profit, or are not actually, they don't have a real product, right?
Yeah.
They
They don't have
just,
any substance, so it's just all
exactly,
just like sort of superficial in a way.
exactly, it's just hype, right?
Yeah.
There's no substance there. So in that case, the bubble will burst, and what we saw was a huge dip in, prices. All of these stocks are just gone, all of these companies being wiped out. So that's sort of a very common thing, if you look at history. A lot of time when there's this graph plots out the way that emerging technologies get adopted. Uh, there's a sort of peak of inflated expectations, and what we saw recent years is the same thing, right? We saw so much inflated expectations. There's this new emerging technology. Bunch of these companies came out and saying that we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but many of them don't have any substances. So if you look at it that way, it's just kind of history repeating itself, right? So a lot of these are just chasing hype. They don't have true products, or they don't have any
Value to
substance
it.
value to it. They don't add any value, right? So in that way, your fear of missing out, right? So you think that, oh, people are all getting into it, that I must get into it. So as the more demand there are, the more prices go up. So if you look at it that way, uh, I think sort of the unregulated nature does come in play, because essentially there's lack of education. Governments don't know what to do about it. Governments, they don't understand what this technology is about, so they're slow to react, right? When they're slow to react, there's less sort of restrictions to how market should play out. Then there's more volatility. But like I said, it's more of just many aspects kind of coming together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, and then for like a beginner, if you were talking to like a beginner, what sort of resources or guides would you suggest for somebody just like starting out?
Sure. I think shameless plug, I would say definitely subscribe to Blockaday podcast.
Of
We
course.
have a
I'll
podcast.
put the link in below.
For sure. Essentially, our podcast, we sort of simplify the technology. We don't focus on hype, focus on technology, make people understand how this technology can apply to different industries. So after a shameless plug, I think good resources is, it depends on what you like. If you're into YouTube videos, there are a lot of sort of, I think, whiteboard crypto is really good. It's a good place to start. It's a good YouTube channel. If you're into books, I think what would be really good is Book of Satoshi, essentially the founder of Bitcoin. This mysterious person or organization
Yeah.
created the Bitcoin, and they have a white paper, and this kind of started this whole new era of Web3 technology. I think that's a good book of Satoshi is a good resource. It's not written by Satoshi. It's just a book written, sort of pulling out all of the historically said texts from Satoshi, and sort of explaining what does the original vision look like for Bitcoin. I think that's a good way to start. Like, start understanding what Bitcoin is. If you understand what Bitcoin is in the core, you can start to understand why there's such a big sort of big hype around this technology, and then and you can start to filter out some of the good ones compared to the hype ones. I think that's a good place to start. Just start from Bitcoin. If you're slightly more intermediate, if you sort of get through the basics, understanding what, like, this decentralized technology is, you can start trying hands-on stuff. So let's say if you're a developer, you can start looking at learning Solidity, which is a programming language on Ethereum. So how do I build these smart contracts? Or if you're someone who's not a programmer, you can start, I guess, start with having a wallet and maybe put a little bit of money into the wallet and then start experimenting with some of the Web3 D apps, which is decentralized applications. And I think this hands-on approach is really helpful to understanding what this is all about. And you'll start to see sort of what are the problems that exist in the space. And I think that's a really good thing because the more people realize there are problems in this space, there are inefficiencies, and there are basically crappy products out there, the more people will want to build better products, right? Um, I think that's super important. So I guess that's a long-winded way of kind of
Yeah, and I think once people like understand it properly,
yeah.
they like they know like okay, like this is what it's there, but then this is what it could be, like to like the actual potential of
Mhm.
blockchain. Then I think they would be even more sort of motivated to like educate other people
Yes.
because they can be like potential future customers.
Mhm.
And then I think second, also just encourage more companies to do the same
Yes.
because I think from what I've read, people either love blockchain, they know like it's amazing and it's going to be so good for the future,
Mhm.
or they're absolutely like disregarded.
Yeah.
So I think if just like understanding, I feel like there's no like common knowledge
Mhm.
about blockchain. What is your opinion about sort of countries are playing, like individual governments are playing? Because again, it's not illegal, you can trade, but again, it's not also used as legal tender.
Yes.
So this sort of like gray space
Mhm.
between this. What do you think about that? Why like governments aren't doing that? I personally feel that because I feel that governments fear that their currency is going to lose value.
Mhm.
Because I think even a bank transfer, even if you're in the same province, can just take like 4 to 5 days.
Mhm.
And if anybody is using like cryptocurrency, it can be done in like minutes.
Yeah.
If that happens, people do want their money moved here and there faster. Like why you wouldn't really go the traditional way, banking way.
Mhm.
And I feel like the other reason could also just be think she's a black money transfer
Mhm.
overseas as well. Because again, it's not very regional. It's very like globalized.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. But what do you think?
No, I think you have a very good point. It's definitely you're on the right track, right? So governments want to do is they want to protect people's funds, right? So there are agencies that exist to protect people's funds, and uh, what they want to do is, like you said, it's true. Right now, because of the nature of how blockchain works, and let's just say Bitcoin, for example, there are black money that goes through the system,
Mhm.
and it's very hard to identify who these people are because of the anonymous nature of it, right? So there are definitely concerns on that. But the truth is there are a lot of illegal stuff that goes through the normal financial system as well. So I think it's a bit unfair to look at Bitcoin and say that because there are black money, so then it's just bad for everything, right? It's not fair. There are traditional financial system go through the same thing, and that's one aspect. They want to sort of make sure that these illegal activities are not being funded through this avenue. The other, I think, what really comes down to is just control. When you have mass adoption of a currency financial system where there's no central entity that's controlling it, has is overseeing it, has the ability to just snap their finger and be like, yes, I'm gonna like blacklist this, I'm gonna control that,
Mhm.
then you essentially are slowly losing control. But that's not what governments want, right? Government want to control.
Control.
Yes. So, but that's why Bitcoin exists. The reason that they exist is to resist these kind of centralization. Is to say that, okay, we can build a financial system based on peer-to-peer support network. We don't need any centralized entity to control our financials. We can rely on the public. We can rely on the community. We can rely on everybody who's participant to support this network and to allow for transfer of money without anyone controlling. But governments fear this, right? So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to that. But because of how fast this technology is evolving, it's really hard to shut it down, right? It's really hard to completely just stop everything. Um, there have been a lot of efforts to do so, but many in vain. So when you can't beat them, you join them, right?
Yeah.
So you find ways to join them, and essentially, if governments can make a good profit out of this, they'll find ways to join them. So, uh, but if you look at some countries that have adopted it as a legal tender, and you wonder why do they do that, then you look at their sort of historic, the history of their currency and how they've came to what it is today. You realize that many of them sort of suffer suffer with like high inflation. So I think a lot of time people who live in Western countries sort of take it for granted, is that we can rely on the currency, and then there hasn't been big sort of um, problems with our sort of financial system. But if you look at some of the more less, I guess, less developed countries, they've have it's you could have so much money in the bank today, but the second day it might just be gone, right?
It might not be worth that
It might
much
not be worth
anymore.
that much. It could be, either there's a war or there's a government gets toppled, and then the bank is overlending. So
How do you prevent scams? Because I don't think there's anybody to go to if
mhm.
you get played. You get scammed. How do you avoid scams?
Yeah.
And yeah, if you get played, what do you do?
I think it's a very common experience among people who have sort of entered the space while it's kind of the wild, wild west. I've experienced scam before. So what I realized is scamming essentially comes down to um, just don't click random links.
Yeah.
So it's very simple for people to get scammed because of this sort of fear, FOMO. Essentially, they're like, oh, I want to. Suddenly, there's a link that appears saying that, oh, if you click on this link and then sign this message, you will receive X amount of coins. And people who are very new to this, they don't see the red flags, right? So
Yeah.
they assume like, oh, this is a normal link, and they click on it, they sign the message, the wallet gets drained. So, and like I said, the thing about the wallets is you own this wallet, and no one can take that away from you. But
If you give it to
if you
someone,
give it to someone,
then
so if you
like,
sign a message and say that yes, I will transfer this amount, it does, right?
yeah.
So by no one can take it away from you is that no one can like essentially they can't like just blacklist you and say that although that's not entirely true, but what's true is that like um, it's not like your bank account. Let's say if someone does some crazy things, banks can say that, oh, this person is a terrorist, and then they freeze his bank account. Right? You can't do that in the blockchain space because you own the wallet yourself.
Yeah.
So and you have the keys to the wallet, and whoever has the keys to the wallet, they have full access to the wallet, right? So essentially, what you shouldn't do is give your keys away. Obviously, if you give your keys away, you're giving your wallet away. So as long as you keep your keys safe, that's first and foremost. Second is just don't click on malicious links, right? Always double check the links. Figure out like why is this link there? Why is this being promoted to me? And always sort of be a bit suspicious of these things. So I think that's if you, we're still in the very early stages of this Web3 space, and in a way, I think it's still wild wild west. It takes a while for it to mature, and essentially, we're all figuring out it together. Educate yourself, look at some YouTube videos, search up common scams in the crypto space. And another shameless plug, our Discord channel, we also have a dedicated page for common scams. So if you're very interested, you can check out that channel. And we listed a couple of common scams, and I think they're very good resources. So it's what's really good is there's a difference between centralized exchange and decentralized exchange, right? So if you look at decentralized exchanges, what I talked about, you own your own wallet, you have your own keys, you own your coins. But there's also centralized, is essentially you have these entities that will say, okay, we'll keep the coin, it will keep the keys safe for you. Think about it just like a bank. So these can include like Binance, Crypto.com, Coinbase. These are centralized exchanges. I think these are great ways to start off. So if you're super new and you're like, I don't trust myself right now to keep it going, what I can do is I just want to participate in it. So you can sign up in a centralized exchange. and then try to trade a little bit just to sort of take this chance to understand some of the projects here and there. You can look at Ethereum, you can look at Bitcoin, you can look at Avalanche. Like, look at these projects and understand what these are all about. And I think that's a great way to start.
Yeah. Moving on to personal questions.
Oh, great.
How is
It's getting
the
personal.
startup founder and student life treating you?
Started Blockaday. I had this sort of vision. I wanted to build this out. I have so much passion, and when you start something, you're super excited, and that's all you can think about is your startup, right? So that's your baby, and you wanted to see it grow. All you can think about is that. So for me, it was quite difficult because I had classes to balance classes and to balance building this. It's really really difficult. But I don't think it's not doable because I see a lot of people around me are doing really well. Um, so what I what I would say is one of the few things is I think it comes down to like resource allocation, like I mentioned, right? You only have so much resources. How do you spend them? What's worth it to you? And I don't think I've done really well in terms of that when I was building Blockaday. By that I mean I spent very little time on studying, so my grades were not good. They were really not good. And if I look back and say would I have changed it, I don't know, actually.
Probably not.
I don't know, probably not. So that's a really interesting point, right? So I think what happens is if you're constantly making decisions here and there, how I look back and say I'm not going to change anything because it led to where I am today, right? It led to me sitting here talking to you. So um and I always think of what Steve Jobs said in one of his commencement speeches is that you cannot connect the dots by looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. That's the one thing I always keep in mind, is that when I face a difficult decision, I realize that no matter what I choose, it's going to be an interesting path for me. Something's going to work out and it's going to be great. No time to study. All you can think of is, building this. And especially when you're with people who are a bit older than you, who are currently sort of full time doing this, you have no choice but to go full time in this, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I was forced to, but I really wanted to do that. So yeah, I think like briefly touch upon that. It's just it was not easy, really hard to balance, but it's not impossible. It really comes down to how you allocate your time, right?
And then what did that look like for you?
So I guess like a bit more day to day. I guess I'll just kind of wake up, and if I have school, I'll try my best to go to classes, which is rarely. But I would sort of find ways to absorb the most important things out of classes. Just see sort of slideshows and see like what's important, note them down. And while I'm noting down, I might be thinking about Blockaday. That's the truth of it, You're always thinking about it, and if you have suddenly an idea, you would want to do that. And there were a lot of meetings here and there about basically everything in the company, right? So how do we scale? How do we kind of grow this? How do we get investors? All of these kind of you're constantly thinking about these in your head. There's just a lot of meetings. Very late at night, you lay in bed. Your mind is still thinking.
That I think a lot of founders before starting out, they underestimate that it's not just gonna like take up half of your time.
Yeah.
It's gonna be your life
It is.
for pretty long.
Yeah.
And you can decide I think as till whenever you're sort of creating new things, innovating, your startup's gonna be alive.
Yeah.
And that requires all of your energy.
Yeah.
Because as an entrepreneur, it's not about you getting a degree and then just applying whatever you've learned in those 4 years to that degree.
That's true.
It's you innovating, testing things out 24. I wouldn't say 24/7, but most of the time.
Almost. Almost there.
Yeah, almost. And I think a lot of founders don't realize that once they're starting it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, we're starting this. We're passionate about this. And then when you actually get into it, I think 1 month in, 2 months in, you see how your priorities have changed and how your
Yes.
life has changed.
Yes.
Because it's even just like, oh, like if you just have classes, after classes, you can go and like meet friends or just go to Stanley Park, ride a bicycle.
Enjoy your life.
Enjoy your life. You have a social life, you study. And then once you have a startup, right? Once you have a startup, it's classes And then after that, you're working, you're doing your homework, you're submitting your assignments, you might take a nature walk for mental health, and then you're back at it
Yep.
again. But there's also so much excitement in that
Absolutely.
that I wouldn't ever sort of choose the classes and then,
True.
meeting friends. I love my friends,
Yeah.
but again, there's just something so exciting about building something from scratch that's completely your idea
Yes.
and your vision that it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think the only worst thing than starting it would be not starting it.
Yes. I'm so supportive of what you just said.
Yeah.
Super. The worst thing is if you just not started, and then you'll at some point you'll look back and say, what if I started that?
Yeah.
You I think you'd miss out on a lot of good things. If anyone is like super interested in building something, I should say go.
I was actually talking to my mentor once, and then I was telling him about this company I'm trying to build, and then I was like, what if I fail? What if I fail? What if this doesn't work out? That doesn't work out? Finances. And then he's like, regardless of whether it works out or not, start. And then when you start, you're going to be in this sink or swim position.
Yes.
And that is going to teach you so much more.
Absolutely.
So that by the end of it, whether, you have your startup and it's continuing and it's a success, or you don't have it, you're going to be a completely different person.
Absolutely.
Because the journey is so wild.
So wild.
It's so wild that it's going to be life-changing.
Absolutely. No, I'm completely supportive of it. For me, what's my priority right now? I'm balancing. I'm doing internships, so I'm balancing my work and my school as well. So
you're doing an internship, you're building Blockaday, and you're studying full time.
Kind of.
Applaud.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It's
the biggest challenge you faced till now in your journey? I think personal, professional, and what has been like the biggest learning from all of that?
navigating through a system and an environment that you're not familiar. Let's say like I am international and I come to Canada, I'm trying to build a business in Canada. There's so many things I don't understand about Canada, right? So you have to navigate everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really big challenge, but what could help you is if you can find a really good mentor. And it's not easy to find a mentor, right? Because it's not just someone you can look at and be like, oh, I like your experience, I want you to be my mentor. It's sometimes you meet them in the most unexpected of times and you realize how much you guys click and how much value you can add to each other's life, not just one way.
Yeah.
And they have to see the value in investing time in you as well, right? So I think having good mentors is super important because they've probably gone through the things that you have and they can offer great insights to you. And having these people to be there to support you is super important. And like I said, it's not easy finding them, but if you do find them, they're great people to sort of make sure you keep in touch with. I think it's fair to sort of mention my friend Zian. I think both of us are very aligned on this as well. We always talk about how important it is to network, obviously, to expand your circle, but it's even more important to look at the people who are close to you and figure out like how can I make sure I keep these contacts, how I need to build these relationships.
Most influential person in your life?
So I actually, thinking about this, I wouldn't go with, okay, my cliche answer would be my parents, right? But I actually want to go with someone else. This is a very controversial person. Someone who I look up to is Elon Musk.
I love him.
Okay, interesting. I find that very interesting. A lot of people either hate him or very love him. I'm very neutral about this person, but I really really admire one thing about him, and this is something I keep in mind as well, is he's not complacent about things. He has high standards and he has high standards for himself. He has so much already, but he's not stopping. And you wonder how come someone who has so much already doesn't stop, and you realize that he's not chasing the same thing as other people might be chasing. Right? He's chasing a mission. He's really, really motivated internally by a mission that he wants to see happen in the future. So no matter how much
his net worth
it frankly doesn't matter. Yeah,
on a
his
mission.
focus. His focus. He's never complacent. And I just really admire that.
Yeah, and for the last question,
Oh, I love it.
if you could be remembered for one thing, what would you want it to be?
Yeah, this is a question that you have to sit and just think for like 3 or 4 days, and then to give a satisfying answer. Um, I think it really relates to what I did the previous question. Remembered as someone who's not complacent, able to sort of do things that I think is going to help not just me but other people.
Other people as well.
That's what I really think. So, I might not have a lot of, for now, might not have a lot of connections, but maybe I have a few, right? What can I do with just a little bit of resources? Okay, how can I help? If someone comes to me and say, hey, I'm building this, I'll be happy to introduce this person to whoever I know or who might help him, right? That to me is not being complacent, because I could really well just sit there and just think, okay, I have what I want. I'm not gonna do anything more than or beyond what's required of me. But I think just being able to sort of know what you have now and always think about how can I sort of help other people achieve their dreams. That's something I want to be remembered as.
Yeah, no, that's pretty impressive. Really like complacency, that whatever you do, like don't be complacent, be focused, and also just lift others while you're trying to rise up.
I think just do more than that's required of you.
Yeah.
I think that's such a broad thing to. It's very broad as well. It can apply to any part of your day, your life, your job, anything, right? Is it what's required of you? Do more than what's required of you.
Yeah, and I think that could be from like the smallest things to like really big things. I think for smallest things could be maybe just like checking up on your friends and family. And then I think it could go like big way, like okay, introducing somebody to someone. You coming on my podcast and promoting
This is so cool. I love it. Yeah. For sure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, this has been amazing.
And
I wish we had more time.
Yeah, and I wish you nothing but success in the future.
You. Appreciate it. Likewise as well.
Hi, I'm Khushi and this is Flipping Founders.